Pop quiz. Test. Just the sound of those words probably still makes us nervous or anxious. Are we prepared to take the test? What will the test results show? Will we pass? Could we fail? In our story today, we know something that Abraham does not. What Abraham is being asked to do is just a test, but a profound test, a test of loyalty, allegiance, and affection. Who will have Abraham's loyalty, allegiance, and affection? Will God? Or will he not? This test requires sacrifice, as does any test of loyalty, allegiance, or affection. Abraham has previously easily dismissed Ishmael and Hagar to probable death in the desert. Ishmael was his son, provided by Sarah's slave, Hagar. And jealousy and insecurity about sharing the estate were all that was needed for Abraham and Sarah to cut off part of their own family and property. All so that Isaac could have everything they had. Certainly, Abraham's affection did not extend to Ishmael and Hagar. Affection also apparently did not extend 3 times to Sarah either. Sarah was lied about 3 times by Abraham out of his fear that men would take her. Twice to the Egyptian ruler did Abraham deny his wife. And once he did this to a Canaanite king, Abimelech. Abraham said his wife was his sister. Every time he was asked, protecting his wife's honor? Nope. Only God intervened each time Abraham abandoned his spouse to stop those rulers from folly in taking Sarah from Abraham. Abraham's allegiance is to be to God alone, yet Abraham has already given it to King Abimelech, who was one of the rulers who almost took his wife Sarah. Rather than encountering unswavering loyalty, allegiance, or affection, Abraham seems to not be able to give it when it is his half-son, or when it is his own wife, or when it's his own wife's slave. Only God seems to be able to deliver Abraham from every consequence of Abraham's follies. Failure, and then subsequently God's rescue, is the story of Abraham's life time and time again. He gets into trouble when loyalty, allegiance, or affection is going to be difficult, or it is expected in return. No wonder Abraham is given this very test of consequence by God. A test between serving God or serving his own interests. Will Abraham's faith be for the sake of love or for the sake of his own gain? The question could be asked of us, is our faith for serving God the sake of love, or for the sake of getting something out of the relationship with God, out of our own self-interests? The reading today is sparse in its details as to how Abraham is thinking as he gathers the two men, his only, remember Ishmael is still very much a son, but his only son Isaac now, the wood, the flame to take with them, and the knife for the sacrifice. We're only told that it's early in the morning and the group travels to the place God will show for the anticipated burnt offering. The young men are told to wait at a place with the donkey while Isaac is loaded with the bundle of wood to be placed on the altar, not knowing what or who was to be the sacrifice. And a little further up the way on the journey, Isaac asks the obvious question, where is the sacrifice to be offered? Abraham's only response, God will provide it. But it takes the building of the altar, the very binding up of Isaac, and the lifting of the knife to slaughter before Abraham even hears a voice to stop. And by the way, apparently has to be told twice, Abraham, Abraham, and sees then with his own eyes the ram caught in the thicket. It appears Abraham was going to go through with it. He had to be yelled at. And then what follows is Abraham goes back to his servants waiting below. But there is no mention of Isaac's whereabouts. It doesn't say that he came down with his father. I think Isaac probably needed a little space between himself and his father after a near-death experience with the man. But was God's test really necessary? Well, like any test, the answer is revealed in its results. Isaac is nowhere near his father when he goes down to Beersheba, but interestingly enough, Beersheba is the area where Hagar and presumably Ishmael may still be. God will not speak to Abraham again. And Abraham does fear God. God does provide. You do not need to offer your children to gain God's provisions. But the question remains, do we still trust Him to provide? Everything about this planet has been declared as the Lord's and the Lord's alone, and all that is within it belongs to God. We often act very dismissively like we are owners when we are never been, nor shall we ever be greater than temporary management. Oh, sure, you may have in your lockbox the deed and title to all kinds of things, but both paper and the possession outlined on it will eventually be surrendered. When we can discover and recognize that our role, our duty, and our responsibility is solely as temporary custodians of both the things we hold, as well as the people in our lives, in the scheme of our life, perhaps our grip should loosen a bit and our willingness to let go of that which we never really own in the first place is made easier. But I know from experience that it's never been easy to move on from the perception of ownership to the spirit of stewardship. From keeping everything as much as possible and grabbing all the toys one can to giving freely from it. And accepting that perhaps I received many of these things not from my own merits nor my own efforts, but from policies that perhaps benefited me at the expense of others. My loyalty, allegiance, and affection may be cause to question if it's been only about the sake of personal gain to whatever or whoever gods demand such things. Because gods always demand loyalty, allegiance, and affection. I admit that often on the altar of self-interest as well as a vested interest in personal gain, we place our bundles of wood and raise our knife in the name of nationalism, economics, prejudice, and a host of other isms that sacrifice other people's children in the names of gods we know so well, but who are also cunning and subtle, the gods of greed, scarcity, security, and self-protection. Other children are offered to a school-to-prison pipeline, to municipal water systems filling cups of water with lead poisoning, with poverty, with inaccessible health care, with underfunded schools, with gun violence, with police brutality, and so many known and well-built altars to so many idolatrous gods. Even in a country that proudly states on its currency, "In God we trust," with the security of the largest nuclear weapons arsenal on this planet. As long as we fail to receive others as God's children, we will continue to be comfortable with the death of others at the cost of our loyalty, allegiance, and affection to those things, to those policies and practices that perpetuate these delusions of ours of ownership and God's favor in the name of our gain. Only a God who provides can stop us from offering our children freely in the name of favor or gain. We are children of Abraham, and in like manner, we are so tempted to use our faith and blessings for our own purposes, no matter what it may cost others. But thank God that we have a God present in our lives who requires the most valuable relationship in exchange for favors and gifts isn't necessary. The favor of God has already been given, and no tests of loyalty are needed. God will always provide the sacrifice. Grace has always come to us with precious blood spilt on it. It will test our allegiance, loyalty, and affection by how you allocate your time as well as your resources. You reveal how devoted you are to whom or to what you see as the highest expression of love. Too many people look to God for the sake of personal gain. And we are too willing to offer children if it would guarantee the gift, the favor, the advantage, or the bargaining with the gods of places and times. Allegiance, loyalty, and affection require sacrifice. Will these things guide us, or will they rule us? What will be the cost for our allegiance, loyalty, or affection? Will we sacrifice the innocent among us for it, or trust a God who provides? Amen.